Welcome, my friends, to Tech Beat. I'm here with my good friend and colleague, Josh Little, who I'm going to come back around to here in a moment. Josh is the CEO and founder of Volley. But first and foremost, just welcome to Tech Beat, where leaders learn, innovate, and grow. We're so happy to have you with us here. We're joining you from Silicon Slopes HQ in Lehi in their awesome podcast studio. First of all, just shout out to Dave, to Connor, to Mallory, who are in studio with us today, helping us out. By the way, I'm Earl Foote, founder, CEO of Nexus IT. Nexus IT is a white-gloved outsourced IT support and cybersecurity services firm based here in northern Utah and servicing a nationwide footprint. Did want to mention that TechBeat is on currently all the major podcast platforms. You can go and consume the content, all of these awesome stories about founders and how they go from regular, everyday people and kids to becoming extraordinary people that create really cool ventures and products. And obviously learn from their journeys. You can learn about their leadership and entrepreneurship lessons and more about their products and the tech that they're building. So we would appreciate your support. Go out, subscribe to us on Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever you consume your podcast. I did want to mention we'll take some questions throughout my hour here with Josh and towards the end. So if you have anything you want to ask Josh or myself, or you want to know more about what Josh and his team are up to, just post your questions or comments out there. We'll try to monitor those as closely as possible throughout the hour. Also, we have some really great guests coming up through the end of the year. We've had to shuffle schedules a little bit in the last few months due to some travel and some different things that have happened. So we're getting some people back on the schedule here. But actually, this Thursday at 2 p.m., Sid Tetro, the CEO of Brandless, will be joining me. Was it 2 p.m.? Do I have that right, Mal? Yeah, 2 p.m. And we'll be right here at the Silicon Slopes podcast studio as well. I'm super excited to have to have Sid on with me. We're working on getting Nate Randall, Romaine Marshall, Tara Spalding, Johnny Hanna rescheduled right now, and some other cool guests that we've got coming up for the rest of this year and then for 23. So thanks again for joining us. Let me get to my guest of the hour. Josh and I ran into each other, I think the first time actually at Silicon Slopes Summit last year.
Was it?
I believe maybe 1 or 2 years ago.
We ran into each other on Volley first.
We
right?
did.
Yeah.
Totally. So I, through Scott Paul, I became aware of the product that Josh and his team have been building. I started using it, started interacting with Josh on his product, and then ultimately we met in person. But let me just tell you a little bit about Josh. So Josh is a teacher turned serial entrepreneur and 4-time successful tech founder. He's built products with hundreds of millions of users and multiple exits. He's currently on a mission to bring more connection and community into the world with his latest product, Volley, an asynchronous video messaging app. Josh, welcome, my friend. Such a pleasure to have you.
Oh, thanks, Earl. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
I'm so excited to spend this hour with you and highlight what you're up to, highlight you as a founder.
Oh, man. You've got quite a lineup. I don't feel like I'm worthy, but I'm so grateful for you having me.
Come on now, man. This is your fourth venture.
Yeah.
We were just talking, you're 3 for 3 on exits and really 4 exits because you had 2 exits in one of those ventures.
Mm-hmm.
Look, and who's deserving, who's not deserving, right? Who's that,
Sure.
Who makes that call, right?
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned, if you're a dreamer, you're a founder, you're working on something, you're hustling, right? You deserve respect. Everybody deserves respect. It doesn't matter if you're a founder or not, right? Yeah.
That's me. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
Dust myself off. Here we go.
You are right where you're supposed to be, man.
Right on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Don't leave me hanging.
Yeah.
All right. So, I want to just kind of back up to Josh Little, the person, right?
Okay.
Let's talk about where you came from, where you grew up. Let's talk about Josh as a kid and as a teenager, and how did that lead into you starting your career and then ultimately, becoming a 4-time tech founder?
For sure. Well, I grew up in rural Michigan, if you know Jackson County in Michigan. That's where I grew up, and I'm somewhat of a reluctant entrepreneur. Entrepreneur was not a word that was used in my hometown growing up. People my mom was an entrepreneur, but we didn't have a word for what she did. She cleaned houses and she did odd jobs. She would move a sandstone wall if someone needed. She would do all kinds of things, and she'd bring her boys along, and we'd help her with those jobs. So she was an entrepreneur, but I didn't know that. My dad worked at the power company, worked there for 40 years and retired, kind of that typical story. And the options I saw in front of me in life were either work at the power company like my dad, work at the prison where everyone else's dads worked, become a teacher where I saw teachers at school, or work in a restaurant like I was. And none of those sounded attractive, but teaching sounded the best of the list of options, right? So I went to school, and because I was a singer, I was your typical dirt bike / show choir kid. You know the type. The type doesn't know where to sit at the lunch table. But that was me, and I was a singer, so I went to school for music education, and was going to become a teacher, and graduated with a degree in education, and went off into the world of teaching in public school. And that was a great start of a career. I learned so much getting a degree in education, but I knew even during student teaching that wasn't going to be it for me. Being married, having one kid and another on the way by the time it took 6 years to graduate because we were working full time. And we were putting my wife and I through school. We both have degrees in education. I knew that $27,000 a year was not going to support a family. So I had to figure out what else in the world could someone with this skill set do. And it turns out sales. If you can motivate 11th graders to not burn down the school, you can sell a person a thing. And so I went into sales. Sense. Yeah, right. And I was good at it. I went and I made a pattern of going. I went to 3 Fortune 500 companies. I went from SBC to Pfizer to Stryker, and at each company I would become quickly one of the top sales reps, and then they would invite me to become a sales trainer or run a global training program. Because of my background in education, that was a good fit, right? So along that journey, I was kind of planning to continue this corporate route. That's what I saw for me. It's like, oh, a new path opened up. It's climb the corporate ladder. Until I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is kind of a common book that a lot of people read and get this entrepreneurial bug, or But for me, a kid coming from Jackson, Michigan, it was like a total revelation. And it sounds dumb to say these things out loud, but it was like, you can be
we didn't grow up that much different. Yeah. I mean, grow up in a town without a lot of possibility. I grew up in West Valley City, Utah, where everybody went to work at the copper mine, right? So, most people didn't, and entrepreneurship wasn't something that really registered, like you said. So I totally get that, man.
Yeah. So it was just like completely new information for me. You can be wealthy if you want to. You can own your own business. What? Like, as crazy as it sounds, I didn't even know there was a job called sales rep until I was like 24 or 25 years old. Like, I didn't even know that a job existed. You could just travel around and talk to people and sell them a product, and they'll give you a car, they'll give you commission. You can get what? Why wasn't that on the menu when I was at Northwest High School, right? Yeah. So Rich Dad Poor Dad kind of gave me the bug, and I started thinking. I became the guy that if you came to my house or we went to lunch, I would hijack whatever conversation in whatever circle, whoever. And we would be talking about what businesses we could start together, how we could create some passive income or recurring revenue or something like that. And I was trying to figure it out. And I would travel, with my corporate job. I was traveling like crazy, like 5 cities a week, different city each night, sort of thing. Yeah. As a rep, so I had a lot of time on a plane, and I filled up 4 notebooks full of sketches of ideas of products and how I'd build it and logos and how I'd get traction, how I'd get my first customers. And I kind of practiced it in my mind. And this was a period of about 5 years. I kind of waited and waited, looking around for the right opportunity. So it wasn't until I was 33 years old that I started my first company. And it was really scratching my own itch. I was at Stryker, which is a medical device company. I was building a global training program, trying to scale what we were doing because I was running 41 different training programs around the world that were live, like in the lab, like physical training, fly doctors and nurses in, really expensive, multi-million-dollar budget sort of thing. And I was just like, this is a waste of money. There's this thing called e-learning. We could make this. And so I was trying to scale what we were doing and build an e-learning program. And I found out really quickly how much of a circus that was to try to pull together. I was working with like 5 different vendors, trying to just the 3D animator, the videographer, the content people, the LMS, and trying to like pull it up. It was like a full-time job. And I thought there should just be a company that does this. Opportunity.
Yeah, there you go.
Maybe this is it. Could I do this? Could I start a company? Is this my entrance ramp to entrepreneurship? And so I tried to start Maestro on the side. I tried, in my 80-hour work week, flying all over. I tried to start on the side, and this is when I realized there's just no such thing as a side hustle when you're working that hard. And so I knew that that I had to quit my job cold turkey and to really start Maestro. And also, by this time, my wife kind of knew that I was going to spontaneously combust as an entrepreneur at some point. Like it was going to happen. It was like one of these, like puberty. It's inevitably going to happen.
4 notebooks full of ideas and logos
right.
Yeah.
So I quit my job cold turkey. Actually, the weekend after we moved into our dream house on the lake with a nightmare mortgage,
perfect timing.
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
And I started Maestro. Which was my first company, and I was going to either sink or swim. I had $30,000 in the bank, which was a mountain of money at the time for me, right? Which which goes very quickly in a service company like Maestro was. But you know what? I downloaded some free software. I built some spine anatomy training modules. I flew to some manufacturers in Texas that I knew of, some implant manufacturers, some medical device companies. And I pitched them on me building their e-learning content. And wow, I closed deal number 1, $90K, closed deal number 2, $30K, and I was in business. Now I had to figure out how to create e-learning and fulfill it for them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's so much fun. So I want to kind of dig more into the career and the founder story and that kind of stuff. But before we go there, I do want to touch on a couple of things.
Okay.
First of all, so you grew up in kind of a rural place. It sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess a farming community, which I see on Instagram.
Yeah.
You have a micro farm, you have a little farm stand, that kind of stuff.
Sure.
That's pretty cool. But then also you're a brine master, right?
Yeah, self-proclaimed.
What in the world is a brine master? Help the audience and myself understand what this is all about.
It's a made-up word. I don't even know if it's a thing. It's what if you make pickles, what are you? A pickler? I don't know. So I call myself the chief brine master. So I'm a 5th-generation pickler. As you can probably already tell from my story, my family didn't have money, but they did have ridiculously good pickle recipes that they wrote down in a leather-bound book that I keep in my safe now. And so that is my family treasure. And when I moved to Utah, this is almost 11 years ago now, one of the first realizations I had was, I don't have pickles here, because in Michigan, I would go make pickles with my dad each year and have an ample supply. And so I had to figure out how to make pickles here. And so I made a surplus the first year and gave jars to friends who wanted more jars. And then the next year, friends of friends wanted jars, then friends of friends of friends. And I started realizing this could actually be a thing. And so I started charging. And so, now it's just a total hipster hobby business. I make only what I can grow on my 1.5 acres there in Highland. And that's the limit. I sell them 1 day a year. I sell it in like an hour or 2, and then we're done with it. And, I cut my kids into the pickle business. So that's what keeps them from trying to set up lemonade stands and bug the neighbors.
That's so much fun, man. That's so much fun. Speaking of hipsters, I dig the hat.
Thank you.
Mallory always makes a game time decision for me whether I wear a hat or go hair, and I think she basically said you're You had a bad hair day and you're going bald, so you're wearing a hat today. and Josh was like, "Well, I got a cool hat too." So I think we're gonna have a new Tech Beat rule where the guest has to wear some funky hat.
Some funky hat, right? Yeah.
Tell us about the hat.
Well, this is a Chinese dock worker hat, and my co-founder Joe Wilson, he wears them, and he's just super stylish. So it's just like the right hat for a bald man. It's it's not a beanie. I don't want it over my ears. It gives me a little bit of warmth. It breaks up all of this skin that's coming out of my shirt. So it's like the perfect hat. And most of the time you don't need a bill or a visor. So
yeah. It's perfect. I like it.
And anything that makes
I may have to consider him.
Look nerdier.
Yeah.
Or people ask questions. I get complimented on it all the time, actually.
Yeah. So not only do you make pickles, you brine pickles, you also brine jalapenos, or in Latin American countries, what they generally refer to as encurtido.
Mm.
Are you familiar
No,
with that?
I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Term.
So like, when you go to a Mexican restaurant and you got like, pickled jalapenos with carrots and that kind of stuff, sitting on the table, that's referred to as encurtido.
Mm-hmm.
So how'd you go from pickles to jalapenos? That's kind of fun.
It's all in the recipe book.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And so I don't call them encurtido. I call them encarnacion because I've named all my pickle varieties after songs.
Okay.
So that one's from Nacho.
Is it from Nacho?
Yeah.
Literally one of the best movies of all time.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. My team and I, we always do, in our Teams threads, we don't use Slack, we use Teams, but and Volley, right? So in those threads, we're always doing like Nacho Libre gifts and stuff. We just,
so
love
good.
the movie. Literally one of my favorites. Okay. So, and you're a vocalist.
Yeah.
You're a singer. You're a tenor.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that.
The choir director in my high school, she's just like the greatest marketer ever. And so this is the trick. This is how you get people in choir. You go to the 5th grade classrooms before you go into junior high or middle school, and you show them a slideshow of all of the field trips you can take if you join choir. She was a genius. Like she showed us, you go to Mexico, we go to New York, we go to all these places, we take days off of school, and we go to the mall. And I was like, sign me up. And I didn't know anything about singing, care about singing, but, I came for the field trips, and then I stayed for the singing. I actually fell in love with singing, and there's a really good guy-to-girl ratio, as most people that have been in choir sort of know.
Especially for the quiet, introverted guy.
That's
that,
right.
Maybe isn't going to go out of his own way. Yeah.
It worked out in my favor, and after a couple of years in choir, I was actually making fun of, we actually had in my hometown, like a super rare opportunity. It's one of these anomalies. We had a Norman Luboff choir tenor soloist, like a Met finalist, who taught voice lessons in my hometown. His name was Monty Long. He's passed away now. But he would help with the choir and direct on certain days and coach, like bring the men in a room and work their parts or whatever. And he had this really distinct tenor voice, and I could like totally mimic him. I could just nail an impression of Monty. And one day, one of the girls in the choir was like, well, if you can do that, why don't you just do that? And I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably a good question. That means I could probably really sing if I really tried.
You were just goofing off trying to impress some girls. Yeah.
And so I started taking voice lessons, and I became decent at singing, kind of the high school choir path that leads to honors choir and solo and ensemble and state festivals and whatnot, and then got scholarships to sing in college, full ride scholarship to junior college, and then not quite full ride.
Legit stuff.
Yeah, to college after. So yeah, love singing. It's a great passion of my life.
I've heard you pop off in song a little bit in Volley exchanges, right?
Yeah.
Would it be putting you on the spot to ask you to sing a verse of something?
Oh my goodness, it probably would. It'll be the pitchiest thing that it'll ever happen.
Come on now.
No, see, and that's the
all
thing.
right. No pressure.
What would you sing? I need to like plan. If somebody says, "Oh, sing something,"
what's your favorite thing?
It's just like a comedian. They're like, "Oh, tell us a joke."
Tell us a joke, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Don't put me on the spot. Okay, we're good.
Let's do.
No, yeah.
Freddie Mercury. How about?
Oh, geez. Okay, you're like
love of my life. You've hurt me. You've taken my soul. And now you leave me, love of my life, can't you see? bring it back, bring it back. Don't take it away from me because you don't know what it means to me. Ooh, yeah, a little pitchy.
Wow. No, but
thank
come
you.
on, on the spot.
Ah, thank you.
And besides that, if you know anything about music, like Freddie Mercury in the last century maybe has one of the best ranges out of any vocalist of all time, right? And you right out the gate, you're like, well, let's just do some Freddie Mercury. No big deal. Like, I'd be picking like, let me sing some Bono, who has like, you know, he doesn't even have a full octave of range, right? You know, I don't have a full octave of range. I just have this big, deep, booming voice.
You have an octave below any note that I can sing, which is like the first thing I noticed. I don't know if you remember this. That was the first volley you sent. I was like, Earl, do you sing? If not, you should, because you have the best bass voice, man.
Yeah, little baritone, little bass.
Yeah,
I'm known for playing the bass a little more than I am singing it. But yeah. I definitely get pitchy myself. All right, so thank you, by the way. That was very impressive. That was fantastic. We've never had anybody sing on Tech Beat, and something new. Boom, there it is. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go back to this, founder's journey. You do Maestro. Now Volley's your fourth venture, right? Maybe just catch us up a little bit on that kind of Maestro into Volley and how you got to Volley. What caused you to ultimately ideate and think about Volley and try to solve a problem in the market that you're doing with Volley?
Yeah. So there are some logical jumps there. So Maestro was essentially an interactive agency that was fully focused on building e-learning, online training programs for big companies. We started in medical device, then we went to pharma, and now Maestro creates learning programs for Facebook and Netflix and all kinds of cool companies. But the unique opportunity of Maestro is being able to see dozens of learning programs like from the top level, because we're at the strategic level with them, helping them build out their programs, think about what's next. And we saw that what we were doing at Maestro solved, an important need. It's really valuable for someone who's selling a total knee replacement prosthesis to be able to see a total knee procedure and, in 3D animation, implant the prosthesis and cut the bone and do all those things. That is valuable. But what we were doing at Maestro really only solved for about 10% of what you need to know to do your job, which actually comes from quotes training, right? And we all know if we started a new job, most of what we need to know or learn happens informally, socially. So how do you learn these things? Well, it's that text message that person sent, the video that this guy created, the email that she sent, the conversation you had around the water cooler. That the other 90% is all of this unstructured learning. And so how do you structure that learning? And so I started to think about that and think, well, there's an opportunity there. What if we created something that was like Facebook plus YouTube, and today I could say plus Loom, and it had like screen recording, and you could just easily share knowledge with your coworkers. It was like closed, social, your company's logo at the top, call it Bloomfire. It's it's the end of corporate learning as we know it. Forget your courses. Let's go all in on social learning. So I called it a social learning platform. It was really radical for 2009 because Twitter had just launched in 2008. Like this, to put us in the timeline of tech, right? Yeah. And so the world wasn't even quite ready to be social. Like most people weren't even on Facebook, like the general populace, until like around this time, right?
Yeah. I think I joined in 2009.
Right, yeah. And so that's when I started building Bloomfire. And so I was thinking, I bet you corporate people are ready to get social at work, right? And so yes, I was partially right. There were definitely early adopters. And so we launched Bloomfire in 2009, started working with some radical HR managers and sales leaders who wanted their teams to be able to easily share knowledge with one another. It worked, and ended up building a team, trying to build a team in Michigan, accidentally built a team in Utah, which is what took me to Utah, because I ended up hiring my whole leadership team out here in the course of 1 week. I heard tech was happening in Utah, and indeed it is, and we're sitting in an office
And this
now.
is still
That's evidence. This is 2010.
2010
now,
yeah.
And moved to Utah in 2011 to come out here and grow Volley, or not Volley, grow Bloomfire with the team that was out here. And the crazy twist of the story is the first day in the office here in Utah, I got 2 calls. One offer on my house, that dream lake house in Michigan, and the other an offer on my company. And what do you do? And because Bloomfire was very forward thinking and very early, we had received other acquisition offers,
Sure.
but this one was legitimate. It was one that you couldn't just say, no thanks.
Yeah. The multiples were nice.
The multiples were nice, especially that given that I had self-funded both of those first companies. We hadn't taken any funding, totally bootstrapped. And so you know how that is. You're, robbing Peter to pay Paul, trying to make cash flow, taking a dime from tomorrow and using it for today and all of this stuff. But I decided to take both offers. And so we sold the company, we sold the house, we decided to stay in Utah. And I thought I was done. I'd made enough money at 36, especially growing up in rural Michigan, that, you can just be done.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And so I did that for a while. And, what
Get
is
bored pretty fast.
what does an irresponsible redneckish kid from Michigan do? Well, he just blows a lot of money on cars and whatnot, and goes on trips that he never thought he could, and does those things. And that's fun for a little while. But, I started by making this big list of all the things I wanted to do in this retirement phase. Is like, I want to get my pictures dialed tight. I want to edit all the videos from all of our trips. I want to do all of these things. And I started working that list. And about a year later, I had no more list. And I was adjusting my sprinklers again.
A lot of life left ahead of you.
Right. At 37.
And
I
Bloomfire was 18 months MVP.
Yeah.
to exit.
Yeah. It was
that's
quick.
fast.
It was
Wow.
quick.
Yeah.
Yep. And I carried a good chunk into the next round, which got diluted like crazy. But lessons learned.
Sure.
So I got the appetite to build something again, but I already built a product company. I'd already built a service company. And so I thought, how about I build a company that builds companies? And I heard about venture studios in New York and in LA, like Science Inc. that was doing Dollar Shave Club. And they were churning out these companies. And I was like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to get together this killer team, and I want to build a venture studio. And so I did. I got together a team, and we built Movement Ventures. And we were on Main Street here in Lehigh. In fact, in the same building we were in Bloomfire. And we started building companies. We acquired a mobile app that was getting traction. We started building products, and we killed about 6 products on the way to building what I called, it was the world's simplest quiz tool. I was like, let's build the world's simplest quiz tool. It's 5 features. I know exactly the features. I know teachers and trainers will just die for it. Let's call it Quizzer. It'll be amazing. You can create a quiz, you can embed it in your site, track results. That's it. So simple. And so I started showing it around to teachers and trainers, and they kind of gave it blank stares. And what level of Kirkpatrick's valuation system does this satisfy? And those sorts of questions of all the uber nerds in the e-learning space. But publishers started embedding Quizzer quizzes in their website, and it blew up. And KSL was actually one of those publishers that, and everyone, all of the local pubs watch KSL, and because KSL is kind of a forward-thinking,
kind of the trendsetter in the
they
local
are
market.
really,
Yeah.
And so other people started embedding other local pubs, and then national pubs, and then pretty soon Gawker and Mashable and Time, and we went from having teachers and trainers give it blank stares to millions and millions of people hitting Quizzer and quizzes on different pages that were embedded in websites. And so we learned a valuable lesson that, the venture studio, for that model to work, you have to care more about the parent than the child. You have to consciously say, I know there's a 1,200-pound marlin on the line on that pole, but I'm going to pick up another pole and start casting it in the water, right? And nobody's going to do that. And we weren't either. We'd never seen a company grow like this. We'd never seen traffic like this. We never seen product market fit like this.
Yeah.
So we all decided to abandon the venture studio idea. Let's go all in on Quizzer. Let's raise some venture money. That'd be fun, right? To ride the lightning
Something new, yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
The venture money. So we raised some venture funding. Some local investors were involved. We won, like in 2014, the best product of the year at Silicon Slopes, and
Nice.
yeah, we were on a tear, and it grew and grew. Hundreds of millions of people taking quizzes a month. I stepped away in 2016. Long story, but the team continued to ride it out and really start looking for my next thing.
Yeah.
And it took a lot longer than I thought. So I spent about 2 years just kind of waiting for the opportunity to hit. Didn't come. So then I started in 2018, like full time validating ideas. And I worked through over the course of 2 years, like 12 ideas. I went from pickles, which was the first idea, to RV park roll up, to debt fund, to a software idea, back to pickles, back to another software idea, to a smart car air freshener, which ended up taking out my left eye when I was cutting down a prototype. And that, so that buried me for like 3 months, got back up on my feet, started working on a education platform for entrepreneurs. Then the pandemic hit, and I was like, I know what the world needs, a better way to communicate, because my prediction was the world's going to fundamentally change. This is going to be a pivot point for work, for school, for community. There's going to be a ton more remote work, and there's no way that we want any future of the world that we want, of work, of school, community, doesn't have a flexible way to communicate face to face. And at the time, I'd fallen in love with communicating on platforms like Marco Polo or like Voxer, and I was like, that's cute, but that's not exactly what the world needs. They need something more robust. You need a desktop app. You need screen recording. You need channels, and to be able to get groups together and create spaces.
You need to be a business tool, not a consumer tool. Yeah.
So the original idea of Volley was like, what if something like Discord had a baby with something like Marco Polo? What would that look like? And who would use that? And so we started putting some prototypes out into the world and getting feedback, and people were like, oh yeah, we could really use this. We could really use this at work. This is a meeting replacer. This is the end of meetings as we know it. And so got the team together in, I guess, May of 2020, and started building Volley, and went into private beta. Within like 12 weeks, we had, a beta version that people started using. You were probably in that private beta somewhere, right?
I remember signing up for the private beta. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, with our very first Android app, which... Thank you for giving us patience on that, right?
But that was, I don't know if you remember, like, part of the Android problems were my fault. So
that's right.
When we got down to it, and I was like, duh, here I am, the IT guy who should have remembered to clear the cache, right? and so I was having some Android problems, but part of it was me.
Well, the Android app is much better now, but
it is. It's fantastic.
But yeah, that brings us to Volley, and so we launched spring of 2021. With the headline on the website, it's the end of meetings as we know it, going to create a new way to communicate, a new way to move work forward, and that was the idea we came to market with.
Yeah, very, very cool. So it's so fun to hear kind of these inflection points throughout time and history and lives of founders, right? That spur these moments of brilliance. And so you're 2.5 years basically into Volley now, which, I mean, that was quick. Pandemic hits March. By May, you're launching, something, and 12 weeks later, you've got an MVP. You got a product that you're starting. Well, I guess beta you're rolling out, right? So look, I was an early adopter, and if you've ever read like the book Crossing the Chasm, right, and you study kind of the life cycle of a product and the user base of that product, right, and typical, technologists, techno nerds, we're often early adopters of a lot of things because, they're gadgets, they're cool, they're fun, right? Yeah. But as soon as I saw what Volley was about, and I had already been using, Voxer and WhatsApp and Marco Polo because, candidly, like being strapped to a computer and a desk all day long and hundreds of emails, it just completely stifles
Yeah.
me as a like I want to get in a space where I can be creative and get into this place where I'm generating
Hmm.
ideas and vision and strategy and executing on that.
Yeah.
And if all I'm doing is answering 800 emails a day, right? It's like
It's hard.
let me just shoot myself in the side of the head here because like I'm getting nowhere and doing nothing, right?
Yeah. Well,
And
most people don't appreciate that. Like, we're all elite athletes at this thing called communication. What we're doing right now, there's so much going on in between you and I, body language, tone of voice. It's unreal. If you like look at the science and the 200 millisecond gap between turns in a conversation and all of the things we're reading in and out, like it's amazing. And so when you have someone that is an elite athlete do something that they're naturally 7 times slower at, which is write an email, which is lacking 93% of the context, which is delivered through tone of voice and body language. Well, then, yeah, you're not going to feel like you're in your zone of genius, right? And so
that's just it.
that's the idea
Yeah.
is, what if you could talk
Yeah.
instead of type?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing? You could share a video message that's automatically transcribed so the other person can watch, read, or listen, whatever is right for wherever they are. So yeah, that's the value prop. That's the idea.
And it makes, like, for me, again, out the gate, it made and still makes today so much sense, because again, there's these time wasters, right? And these spaces where you're just not in your genius. And in 24 years of being an entrepreneur, I've had emails and texts misinterpreted so many times, right? Because there's no tonality to it, right? And there's no personality, to it. But you send a video, it's pretty easy to interpret how you're delivering a message, even if the verbiage could be interpreted, differently. And so, I was like, man, this is a game changer. And I spend a lot of my time during my days out and about. I'm meeting with partners. I'm meeting with clients. I'm meeting with, candidates and, other founders and all that kind of stuff, right? I'm going to events and, we sponsor a lot of stuff. And so, sitting down in front of email, having the time to do that is like, I don't, right? And so Volley from the beginning has been like, this is awesome. It's great. I can put together groups of people. I can put together groups or teams, for my team. We can replace boring hour-long meetings or 2-hour-long meetings with a quick dialogue back and forth and probably get the same result in 10 minutes, of exchanges on a platform like Volley. So tell us a little bit about now, 2.5 years into this, you have this vision of what Volley is going to be. How has that evolved, over the last 2.5 years, and what's changed, and where are you finding kind of your traction, your results? How are people using it?
Yeah. So, like I said, we knew the world needed a flexible way to communicate face to face. We don't see a future of the world where our kids are typing messages with their thumbs and or scheduling time to meet. Those can't be the two options: synchronous, time bound, or asynchronous text only, right? There's got to be something that blurs those lines. And so if you don't understand what Volley is by the description, unfortunately, the best thing I've found to describe it on podcasts is it's like video texting. And I don't know why that gets people there, but that gets people there. They can sort of like conjure the idea of what sending a text message is like, and it's a video. Okay. That gets them in the ballpark. It's like texting and talking had a genetically advantaged baby that has the richness of talking and the flexibility of texting, right? So that's the core value prop. That's what Volley can deliver. We thought our original hypothesis was teams. Oh, teams are going to eat this up. Everyone's gone remote. Their lack of communication, loneliness, meeting fatigue. These are the top 3 problems of remote work. Volley aces that test. And so that was our beachhead, and that's what we went to. And we had thousands of teams adopt Volley, which was really exciting. And then we had only hundreds stick. And no matter how much onboarding we did, we found that there was a really deep stack of conditions that had to be right for a team to adopt Volley. And Slack has just amazing network effects, that we would have to replace. So in order for Volley to solve the problem that you want it to solve, the lack of communication, loneliness, meeting fatigue, you have to have it as your daily driver, which means you have to replace Slack with it or Teams with it. If Volley is your second in charge, it's going to be like this hobby car that sits in the garage and that you get out once a month and you drive and you wonder if you should keep it or not. And that's where Volley ended up sitting with a lot of folks. So not only that, you have to have a leader with insane gravity and authority who isn't even the person that makes the decision, but is the person that can actually make the decision stick, right? And we found that most leaders actually don't even have the gravity to do that. Then your culture of your team has to be right to allow for vulnerable communication, right? So video communication allows you to be seen. You have to be seen in order to get the benefits of Volley. And unfortunately, most cultures weren't there. They wanted their cameras off on Zoom. They don't want to be seen. They want to, hide.
They're taking this opportunity to take a break from the face-to-face interaction for right now. And be in their pajamas or their underwear. Yeah.
And so this stack, you had to get yeses on all of these conditions. Yep. And we saw teams stick, and for them, it was life-changing. The team at Volley could not build Volley without Volley at this point. There's no way that a team of 7 engineers could build Volley as fast as we have on 4 platforms without flexible face-to-face check-in, sync up, unblocking, nonstop. We're talking all throughout the day. But unfortunately, the use case wasn't as reproducible as we had hoped as our first beachhead. And along the way, we started seeing coaches and creators and consultants adopting Volley, using it for their group coaching and their masterminds and their boot camps and their fitness challenges and their one-on-one coaching and their micro coaching and on-demand consulting. And we're like, that's cool. That's really cool. And then pretty soon they became our top spaces and some of our top users. And then we started listening. What are you doing? Tell me more about what's a mastermind?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool. Tell me more. Okay, wow. AMAs? Got it. And so we just started listening to them, starting building the features they needed to build community and connection, and to teach and learn. And so a lot of the features we've built, and a lot of where we're heading, are heading more toward education. That Volley, yes, it's an awesome communication tool that enables flexible face-to-face communication, but that's actually the thing that unlocks individualized instruction. As a total education nerd, that's what every teacher, trainer, coach, consultant in the world is trying to figure out, is how do I enable feedback to be given exactly when, where, and how the student or the learner needs it. That's the magic of education. That's what powers the most powerful education experiences you've had in your life. So this is what we're learning is, oh, maybe we didn't build a communication platform. Maybe we built the ultimate way to learn and teach and coach and train. It's a new way to teach, coach, and inspire. And so that's where we're heading with the platform. And that's what we're excited about. And just next week, we're launching the ability for anyone to monetize the experiences they're creating in Volley. So they can essentially create their own Hogwarts, if I can use a Harry Potter reference, a magical place where people can learn, transform, and find belonging, and charge for access in both their one-to-one and their group programs. So we're really excited about that.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
And it makes so much sense. Again, a service-based venture for 24 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
You trade time for money, right?
Yeah.
I don't know that there's an applicable use case in our industry because it's, real-time tech support, right? But for coaches and these consultants and that type of stuff, to go for them, like this is game-changing to go from them from like I have to schedule, or even a psychiatrist, right?
Yep.
I have to go from, and okay, granted, we got to figure out HIPAA and all that kind of stuff, right? But to go from I have to schedule people for an hour and trade my time for an hour to get XYZ outcome, right? And now I can basically say like, let's just do a monthly subscription, and here's, you can just subscribe right on Volley.
Yeah.
And, hit me up when you need some things. I'll send you some ideas. I'll send some things here and there, right? Like it's kind of game changing because now you can choose, and they don't even have to necessarily work 8 to 5 anymore. Like it can be, and where do they work? Like, there's this digital nomad thing. It's tough for employers, that need people like seats and cheeks and people to go out and actually service businesses and stuff like that, right? But, you can be on the beach in Costa Rica and be sipping a pina colada and charging somebody for some time, right?
That's right.
In a 5-minute volley or something
Yeah,
like that.
it's coach in your pocket, not on your calendar. Who wants a coach on your calendar? So actually, one of the products we're launching next week is called Consult with Me, where you can create a one-time or recurring offers where you can sell time-limited access to you in a Volley DM. So you could create an offer that's as low as 5 minutes. So I'll do a 5-minute ask me anything, or I could do a 15-minute pitch deck punch up. I'll give you feedback on your pitch deck. 15 minutes, we'll volley back and forth. And so a timer starts at the top of a volley conversation. And of course, the customer's volley also eats the time. So if it takes you 3 or 5 minutes to spit out your question or pitch your idea,
you better get to it.
That's good, because I'm listening to it on 2x, right? But then I'll add my 10 minutes of value or whatever it is at the end of that. And so we're doing that. And we're also allowing you to launch recurring, which is kind of an all-inclusive, like, unlimited access to Earl. What would that even be worth?
Yeah.
I can't imagine something like that. We actually
for Josh, that's worth, millions a month. But
well, we had an investor. Well, you might know Travis Chambers, who launched
a
$1,000. He launched one Instagram story. He said, "I'll advise your company $1,000 a month, all on Volley." 400 people saw the Instagram story. 8 people committed. So he's making $8,000 a month in recurring revenue. These companies are getting immense value. He's like, this is the easiest money I've ever made. Yeah. I'm doing this in like 2 hours a week. I'm going to do more of these, right? And
Travis, I'm going to steal your idea, man.
Yeah, right.
Just kidding.
Absolutely. I'll advise your company. I'll be on retainer. I'll be your tutor. I'll be your mentor. I'll be your personal trainer. Whatever that is. Now it enables coaches, consultants, teachers to actually have a flexible way, a scalable way to deliver value that doesn't trade time for money. In one instance, it does trade time, but it's flexible time, which is way more acceptable than scheduled time.
Yeah. Well, and let's be real. Like sometimes when you schedule an hour-long meeting where you're trading time for money, oftentimes if you're more concise about that communication and more mindful and thoughtful about it, that hour of communication could be condensed to 10 minutes or 15 minutes and get the same exact outcomes, right?
Yep.
So now you're enabling these service providers to potentially, monetize at a much greater level, right? If they're able to get to the same outcomes quicker, through a platform like Volley.
That's it. Yep.
So Josh, and I know that Volley isn't the only time this has happened to you as a founder. You mentioned, choosing a beachhead, and that theory of what your beachhead is going to be, and ends up being maybe not wrong, but not quite right? Yeah. And so the market starts to tell you your product market fit is something other than what you thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit about what you've learned in that process, because this is like, I don't remember the numbers, but it's like 80% of ventures fail because they fail to nail the product market fit, right?
Yeah, correct.
It's massive.
Yep.
It's where so many, and for a lot of us, particularly engineers that are building products, we're very binary in the way that we think, right? And we think that we've got, this is my use case, mm-hmm. and we stick with that use case, and we don't ever understand and know the market's telling me something different, right? And I need to pivot to what the market's telling me. So tell us a little bit about that journey for you, what you've learned, and what, how you would do things differently in the future potentially.
Yeah, well, product market fit is one of those things that when you don't have it, you wonder if you do. And it's people are using your product. It feels like you might have it. You're doing willingness to pay surveys. You're doing must-have surveys. Yeah, we got a 24. And you're poking, and it feels like you might have it, but you're not quite sure. If you're in that case, you don't have product market fit. When you have product market fit, there's no mistaking. It's like Quizzer. It's like, we had product. Holy cow! Boom, quizzes. Boom. Like,
you've got more fit than you can deal with.
Yeah, we can't keep up with the demand of this product. There's no way we're going to be able to onboard these customers. We're going to have to raise money tonight to keep this, the lights on tomorrow sort of thing. Yeah. And so, that's happened a couple of times. And so I'm becoming an expert at kind of pivoting toward finding product market fit and finding your way. So it happened with Bloomfire. It happened with Quizzer, and now it's it's happening with Volley. Often what you think your product is or how people use it is not how. And so in order to navigate these waters, you need data. And that's the most important thing to get right. I have a ton of data at my fingertips. And we can't, of course, see any content in Volley. We don't know what anyone's saying or talking about, but we do know how they're behaving and what they're doing and when they get in and when they fall out and how many volleys it takes to get them to retain and when that aha moment happens. And we study these things and watch, different types of users, different cohorts of users to just find and put together the qualitative data quantitative data with the qualitative data that we're just receiving every day that we can't not receive because Volley, we're very in front of our customers. Every user gets a conversation called Hello Volley, which is just a conversation with the team, which used to be just me. Now we have a team who's manning Hello Volley, and we just hear so much. We hear so much, and we share it with the team. And our engineers are all involved in intertwined in our communities. So oftentimes you'll be in Volley for fan club or Volley for coaches, and you'll hear from Boyd or Parker, one of the engineers, and they'll like chime in on a user who has a problem, and they'll go fix the problem and save the day, and really cool interactions like that. So it takes that mountain of data to help you make the decision of, oh, yeah, it doesn't seem to be, and then add to that recipe a decent dose of honesty and being willing to look at your baby and realize that's not working, and I would love this to work for teams, but those are shark fins, like look at that team graph, 3 to 6 weeks, they fall off, 3 to 6 weeks, they fall off. I've got 2,800 of those graphs that I've looked at, and it's not pretty. And you have to look
tell you,
at
even
that.
as a CEO, to get your team to adopt something new, even if you're a gravitational sort of CEO, right?
Yeah.
I rarely try to push down like new tech stack.
Yep.
Anymore. I let them, I might say, hey, here's an idea, right? You might want to check this out or something like that. Rarely do I ever say like, we got to have this, we got to use this, we got to do this, right? Because, and even when you have a great culture where it's the right fit and stuff like that, it's just, as you said, there's so many variables involved, right? To get particularly a team to say, okay, this is our tool, right? This is what we're going to use.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in that case, it also required 100% of the people on the team to be comfortable recording a video of themselves talking. Yeah. Which, even though Snap, even though Marco Polo, even though all of these apps exist, TikTok, most people have never recorded a video of themselves talking.
Particularly
most people.
Engineers.
Yes.
Product teams, right?
Right.
No.
We've recorded a lot of videos of other people and our kids, but very few of us have actually flipped that camera around, flipped it, the front-facing camera, and talked into the camera. And so we talk.
It makes me look fat. Can you put a filter on there?
Hold it up like that, Earl. You look good.
Oh, right.
So like 90% of our users, I'm seeing people that are recording the very first video they've ever recorded of themselves in their life, and they say, I feel like I'm talking to myself. This seems weird. Can I not look at myself? And they start saying things like that. And we're like, no, there's no way that Volley can deliver what you want without video being involved. You're just going to have to get covered. I just don't see a future where we're not all a lot more comfortable with using video to communicate, sending video messages. I think Star Trek, they're getting video messages. They're not on Zoom on Star Trek. They're getting a message that's asynchronous, right?
Yeah. So, you talked about something here that I think that's worth reiterating. And in fact, funny enough, John Bowers from Silicon Slopes and I were just, before you arrived, we were talking about Summit that just happened, end of September, and he was talking about the lessons that they've learned, over many years of doing Summit, and the lessons they learned this year. And we talked about, speaking of podcast and books, Reid Hoffman, one of the original founders of LinkedIn, his Masters of Scale book, he talks about using quantitative and qualitative data, right? And relying more on the quantitative data, because the qualitative users will tell you something, right? Oftentimes they're not they don't know how to interpret how they're using your product or where they find value in it, but that'll show up in the data, right? And so, he talks a lot about, yes, listen to the users, but really focus in on your quantitative data
Yep.
and, those habits of how they're really using your product or your service to help shape your roadmap and understand where you have product market fit, right? So, that's been a really, I think, key learning for me as an entrepreneur, and being very observative about, if in services, it's a little bit harder, right? Because we don't have anonymized data that our platform, collects, right?
It is, yeah.
It's a user experience. It's a direct user experience. So we have to be very observative, with that user experience.
Yeah.
But that's been a kind of a game changer for us. Anyways, we're winding down here. First of all, Dustin Kenyon says, "Hey, what's up?"
What's up,
shout out. What a great guy. By the way, Dustin, hopefully you're still with us here. I did tell Mal earlier today. I said, "Hey, we need to get Rob and Dustin on Tech Beat on the podcast. We need to talk about toilet tech."
Yeah, right.
You've seen Dustin like taking his SaaS background. Now he's calling it SaaS, seat as a service, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Little pun. There a little play on words too, right?
Yep.
But
Yep.
so
What's the name of his new product?
Well, he joined forces with Rob Pilecki at Washi.
Oh,
so
Washi, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyways, winding down, we got about 4 minutes left here. What are, maybe just kind of one of the big lessons you've learned throughout your career as a founder that you think would be really helpful to other founders out there?
Oh, so many. Yeah, I do have like these 7 things I'll just start sharing some of them. The number one for me, it'll probably be written on my gravestone. My kids will make sure that it's written, is do what you say or say something else. And that is seemingly so hard for people to do. And I'm even so radical that I believe words are promises. Like, if you said the words, you've got to do it. If I say I'm going to be here at 1:50, I'm going to be here at 1:50. I'm going to move a mountain to be here at 1:50, right? And it's not just about punctuality. It's just about commitments and promises. So that's the justice side of it. But the mercy side of it is, or say something else. And that's the part most people miss, is it's okay to miss a commitment. It's okay to swing and miss, but call it out. Like, I thought I was going to get this done tonight. There's just no way I'm going to be able to do that. And most people can't say those words. And so that's what I've found, like really makes the heart of what makes teams work is just kind of this commitment to honor our words with action and do what you say or say something else.
That's so important. So first of all, like when you get really studious about hyper-performing teams and what really creates those, right?
Yeah.
It really boils down to 2 variables. Is there trust, and do the members of that team have individual psychological safety, right?
Yeah.
And those 2 factors, and this is something I own to one of our one of the members of our team, our director and head of leadership development and cultural integration, Dr. Jeb Hurley, right? This is kind of his life's work. But when those 2 factors exist, like you can close almost any gap on a team, right?
Yeah.
And not keeping commitments is one of those.
Yeah.
But if you're self-aware enough to close that gap by saying, "Hey, I'm sorry, I missed the mark, or I know I'm going to miss the mark. I'm not going to be able to deliver within that timeline." That's just it. Like, so often as leaders or founders, we might express something, and we have good intentions, but we can't always deliver on everything that we hope that we want to deliver, and particularly within the time frames that we hope we want to deliver. So if you just true it up, right?
Yep.
You just take the opportunity to say, "Hey, Josh, I'm sorry. I know I was going to get you that thing, by 5 p.m. today. I had a crazy day. I'm going to work on it over the next 2 days. I'll get it to you, on Friday, right?
Almost everyone is okay with that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, absolutely. And that's what builds trust, is that you said something else, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of my second thing is playing with all cards on the table, which is the safety part, right? And so I'm not I've been radically transparent, like giving blow by blow Series A funding details to the entire team on Slack, at Quizzer, which was radical because it's NEA is going to do 20 million. No, they're not. Sequoia said they're and so everyone's like at the top of the,
it's a little too much of a roller coaster.
Too much of a roller coaster. So I don't do that now, but my data is your data, and we share everything at Volley, rain or shine. And I have a ritual called Weekly What Up, where I just read the news, man. Here's what's going on. Here's the financials. Here's what we got in our bank account. Here's our runway. Here's what's happening. Here's the traction we got. Here's what we thought we were getting. Here's what we actually got. Here's the experiments we're running, and just kind of share all of that data, and we talk about it as a team. And so everyone on the team can see everything that's happening. Like there's a front row seat to everything. There's nothing hidden. There's no secrets among us. Yeah. And you might say, well, that's going to scare your engineers away. Actually, I found it does the exact opposite. It makes them love and be even more committed to the cause and making things work.
Engineers like certainty, and transparency helps establish certainty. Even when there's uncertainty, at least they know, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's a lesson that we all learned over COVID really well. Is transparency is so important when you're in times of uncertainty. And I realize like we're going through this cycle now. This down cycle right now where a lot of companies are suffering, right? And a lot of people are having to lay off. And if I can do anything to encourage leaders out there, be open and transparent with your teams, right? Even if it's the message is I don't know what's going to happen here, right? We're doing our best, right?
Mm-hmm.
We got and here's what we got to do as a team to try to get through this, right? But transparency helps so much because uncertainty is where psychological safety falls off the cliff, right?
Yep.
So we're up on time here, Josh. Again, I want to just thank you. This has been an enlightening hour. It's been
thank you.
a hell of a lot of fun to hang out with you.
Likewise.
Have you sing and all the cool stuff. Tell us your stories, right? There's so much we can learn from a 4-time founder, 4-time exit guy.
Yeah.
Just congrats to you and your team and everything that you're up to. If you haven't checked out Volley, go get Volley. It can be game changing if you're using it right. You got to figure out how to get your teams to adopt it if you're going to use it within a team, but just within. I put an autoresponder, and I think you know this, but like on my LinkedIn, on my email, I put an autoresponder on everything and said, "Look, hit me up on Volley.
Send me a Volley.
If you're sending me a text, email or message or whatever, I'll get back to you when I can. But Volley's how I communicate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, thank you. This has been a lot of fun. Thank you to our audience who's joined us this hour. Just want to remind everybody, this Thursday, 2 p.m. Mountain, Sid Tetro is going to join me right here in studio again. We're going to have a good conversation about, in about 18 months here, how she's taken Brandless from an 8-digit well into the 9 digits. And it wasn't a turnaround. Brandless was already doing some really cool stuff, but they've more than tenfolded their revenue in 12 to 18 months. Can you imagine? Like that's a wild ride.
At that stage, yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. Anyways, we're going to have some conversations about that. Sid's always very enlightening. I'm excited to have her on. Thank you to everybody. We're going to go ahead and sign off, and we're out. See y'all later.